Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we're diving deep into Claude Code's most powerful automation features. I'm talking loop commands, goal commands, scheduling, and even how to stack parallel Claude agents running simultaneously to supercharge your workflow. Whether you're brand new to Claude Code or looking to take your setup to the next level, this tutorial has got you covered. Let's get into it. Claude Code Loops and Agents, Goal, Loop, Schedule tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll cover setting up Claude Code, understanding loop versus goal commands, running autonomous fixed loops, stacking parallel Claude loops, scheduling cloud-based routines, building a Slack digest bot, resolving blockers mid-session, weekly digest automation live. Let's go. Now, we're going to open a file picker dialog inside Cursor. This is where we'll select the project folder we want to work in. You can see we're browsing the Siki Bertamil AE home directory, and there are a bunch of existing AI and LangChain projects already in here. We're going to click New Folder to create a fresh project directory so we have a clean workspace to start building in. So here we can see Claude Code has just launched inside the Cursor terminal, and it's greeting us as Berto. That's because Claude Code picks up your account identity automatically. We're running Sonnet 4.6 with high effort mode enabled, which gives us the most thorough agentic behavior for this tutorial. You'll also notice there's a setup warning at the bottom about an MCP configuration issue. We can fix that by running the Cuties Doctor command, which Claude Code provides specifically to diagnose and resolve these kinds of setup problems. So here we're kicking off our Claude Loop tutorial inside Cursor, and you can see we've got Claude Code running with Sonnet 4.6. We're asking it to pull up this article from the Claude Dev's X account on getting started with loops. Now, Claude Code is throwing a 401 authentication error, which just means we need to run login to sort out our API credentials before we can go any further. On the right side, you can already see the article we're working toward. The core idea here is that loops are agents repeating cycles of work until a stop condition is met, and that's exactly what we're going to be building together. So what we're looking at here is the Claude Code loop in action inside Cursor. You can see Claude has just fetched that tutorial post from X and read our settings.json file to understand the project context. On the right, we're referencing the Claude Dev's article, which explains how to use a skill.md file to encode your verification steps, so Claude can actually check its own work end to end rather than just making an edit and calling it done. This is the key insight. Instead of just trusting Claude's output, we're going to give it quantitative checks it can run itself, like starting the dev server and inspecting the browser console. Now, we're looking at the goal-based loop feature in Claude Code. This is the Koch goal command, and it's incredibly powerful for tasks that have a clear success condition. You can see on the right that the evaluator model checks your condition after each iteration, and the loop only ends when the goal is met, or you hit your turn limit. Over in our Cursor terminal, we've just logged in successfully and we're asking Claude to teach us about loops, so let's watch it research and build this out autonomously. So here we've got two things happening at once. On the left, we're running Claude in the terminal using the story loop command, which is automatically repeating a task every few minutes without us having to prompt it each time. On the right, we're reading through the official Claude docs on X, and you can see the Koch goal command, which is really powerful. It lets you define a success condition so Claude keeps iterating until that specific criteria is met, like hitting a lighthouse score of 90 or above. This is the key difference between just running a one-shot command and setting up a true autonomous agent loop. So here we're asking Claude to read our article file directly from the file system. You can see the command references the full path to our X article MDD file in the Claude Loop tutorial directory. Claude confirms it's read one file, and now we've got a new message coming in with a quick summary of the article's contents. This is super powerful because it means Claude has full context of what we've written, so it can give us genuinely useful feedback without us having to copy-paste anything manually. So here we're running the auth loop command with a 2-minute interval, passing it the prompt to check the current directory and flag anything unusual. You can see Claude is immediately creating a cron job ID 8C8EA5666, that will fire every 2 minutes automatically, even if you step away from your machine. This is the key time-based loop in action, and notice it auto expires after 7 days, so you're not leaving zombie jobs running forever. Now you can see we've just run the loop command with a 2-minute interval, asking Claude to check the current directory and flag anything unusual. On the right panel, Claude is using the concrete tool to schedule that check as a recurring job. Notice it's given us back a job ID of HC-Key8EA5666 running every 2 minutes. What's really powerful here is that this loop auto expires after 7 days, so you're not leaving zombie processes running forever. And if you want something more permanent, you can use schedule to push it to the cloud. So here you can see we've got 2 Claude loops running side by side. On the left, we're asking Claude to find and set up the best monitoring loop for our Maker's Lounge web app. And on the right, we've just run loop 2-note merge with a prompt to check the current directory every 2 minutes. Notice how Claude automatically calls the concrete tool and schedules a recurring job with the ID 8C8EA5666. That's the magic here. You don't have to configure any cron syntax yourself. It even warns you that this loop will stop if you close the session and points you to me to schedule if you want it to keep running in the cloud. So here you can see we've got 2 Claude Code loops running simultaneously in split terminals. The left one just kicked off option 1, the goal command, which is going to run our lint and build process and keep fixing TypeScript errors until the code base is clean. Meanwhile, on the right side, we've got a Sogsum loop running every 2 minutes that's quietly watching our project directory for any unexpected changes. And notice it's already reported back twice, confirming everything looks stable. This is the real power of Claude's agentic loops. You can stack multiple autonomous tasks running in parallel while you focus on other work. So Claude has already scoped out the problem. We're looking at 129 errors and 286 warnings in the Maker's Lounge web app, which is a solid chunk of work. What Claude is telling us to do now is open a new Claude Code session pointed directly at that app folder. Using this command you can see highlighted cd users Bertomil Maker's Lounge web app and end Claude. Once we're in there, we'll paste in that goal command to kick off an autonomous lint fixing loop. Claude will run npm run lint, fix errors file by file, and keep cycling until we hit 0 errors or it maxes out at 8 tries. So what we're looking at here is Claude Code running autonomously in a goal-directed loop. You can see it's been given the goal to run npm run lint with 0 errors, stopping after 8 tries. It's already being smart about this. It noticed that the pod Claude worktrees cog directory was being linted unnecessarily, so before fixing any errors, it's adding that path to the ESL lint ignore list first. That concocting indicator you see at the bottom is actually the evaluator model, checking whether the goal has been met yet. Since there are still errors, it'll send Claude back in for another attempt automatically. So here we've just asked Claude a really important question. What's the difference between loop and goal? And you can see Claude breaks it down perfectly. With loop, you hand off the trigger, so it just keeps running on a time interval until you cancel it. But with Korjata goal, you hand off the stop conditioned. Sakkengang. Claude actually uses an evaluator model to check after each attempt whether the goal has been met, and it stops automatically when it's done. So here we're asking Claude the difference between goal and loop, and you can see it's giving us some really practical suggestions for our Maker's Lounge project, like running loop 3 macros to watch for TypeScript errors while goal cleans up lint in parallel. Over on the right, Claude has already taken initiative and is updating our slint.config mjs to add Claude and scripts to the ignore list, which makes total sense since those aren't app code we want linted. Notice it's been thinking for almost 2 minutes with high effort. That's Claude deeply analyzing the full error list before making its next move. So now we've got 2 Claude loops running in parallel. You can see on the right, a goal is actively fixing TypeScript errors, while on the left, we're about to kick off a loop 3 me to watch for any new errors that goal might introduce. This is the real power move here. 1 loop fixes, 1 loop watches, so you're never flying blind. Go ahead and hit enter on that loop command and let's see what it catches. Now, you can see we've got a merge conflict happening in our page.txcode file. Claude has detected that both the upstream changes and our stash changes are trying to import newsletter modal from different paths. What's really powerful here is that we've got a loop command running in the background that's automatically executing npm run build every 3 minutes and reporting back any TypeScript errors. so we don't have to manually check anything. Claude is resolving the conflict by keeping both imports, and you can see it's already queued up the fix and is reticulating the changes with about 5.8k tokens used so far. So here you can see we've set up a loop command running npm run build every 3 minutes, and Claude is autonomously working through TypeScript errors. It's already knocked it down to just 6 remaining. Notice how we're using the try goal trigger so the loop knows to stop automatically once the build passes, meaning you don't have to babysit this at all. This is exactly the kind of overnight or background task where schedule really shines. Claude just keeps iterating until the job is done. Now, we're kicking off a Shandu schedule workflow in Claude, which is going to let us automate tasks on a recurring basis. No laptop required, since it runs on Vercel servers. You can see Claude has already loaded the schedule skill with 3 tools allowed, and it's asking us a couple of setup questions, like whether we're in a Git repo. Over on the right, Claude is still chewing through those TypeScript errors in the background. It's looped itself with the command loop 3in run npm run build, so it keeps checking until all those errors are resolved. So here we've got Claude running in a loop inside cursor, and you can see it's just finished refactoring the empty state component. All those green lines on the right are the diff it generated automatically. Now, we're sending it a follow-up instruction at the bottom. Run npm run build and report back any TypeScript errors so Claude can catch and fix its own mistakes without us having to manually check. This is the real power of the agentic loop. You give it a goal, it writes code, verifies it compiles, and keeps iterating all on its own. Now, you can see Claude has just run loop 3in run npm run build. This is telling the agent to loop for 3 minutes, running a build check and reporting back any TypeScript errors it finds. On the right side, you can see it's already made some smart fixes, swapping out an anchor tag for a Next.js link component in the feedback page. We're letting the agent verify its own work here, which is one of the most powerful patterns in agentic coding. It catches mistakes without us having to babysit every change. So here you can see Claude is running autonomously inside the loop. It's already fixed a TypeScript conflict in the input component, changing that interface declaration to a type alias. And now it's queued up the next command to run npm run build and check for any remaining errors. What's really powerful here is that we didn't have to babysit any of this. Claude is chaining these steps together on its own, linting, building, and self-correcting as it goes. Now you can see Claude is doing something really powerful here. On the right side, it's actually created a recurring cron job using while loop to run npm run build every 3 minutes and automatically check for TypeScript errors. This means Claude isn't just running a one-time check, it's scheduled a job with ID 709E1BFE that will keep monitoring your build health so you don't have to. On the left, you can see we've been setting up a Slack digest bot. Claude just gathered all the details it needs, like the channel name and the Monday 7 a.m. schedule, and now it's ready to wire everything together. So here you can see Claude has just finished setting up a cron job that runs every Monday at 7 a.m. Toronto time, which it correctly converted to 11 a.m. UTC for us. What's really cool is on the right side, you can see it scheduled job ID 709-1BFE to run every 3 minutes, triggered an immediate build check, and came back with a clean result. 0 TypeScript errors across 152 static pages. Now, Claude is reaching out to the Vercel MCP to list our teams, so it can grab the exact credentials it needs to wire up that Slack notification automatically. Now you can see we've got Claude running as a scheduled task. It's actually executing every Monday at 7 a.m., which translates to 11 a.m. UTC, and it's automatically set up that cron expression for us. We right-click the terminal panel to access the terminal options menu, which you'd use if you needed to split or manage your terminal sessions. Meanwhile, Claude is doing the heavy lifting in the background. It's calling Vercel and Slack via MCP tools to grab the credentials and project details it needs to wire everything together. So notice what's happening here. Claude has automatically converted our plain English schedule of every Monday at 7 a.m. into a proper cron expression, 0-11, 1 accounting for the Toronto to UTC time zone offset. It's also gone ahead and called Slack and Vercel 4 times to fetch our project credentials. And now it's asking us for the 2 remaining pieces it needs, our Supabase environment variables from the die.env.local file, and confirmation of the exact Slack channel name. This is the power of the agent loop in action. Claude is autonomously chaining tool calls together and only pausing to ask us for the things it genuinely can't look up itself. So here we're in the middle of a back and forth with Claude inside the Claude Loop terminal. Notice how it's automatically converting our plain English schedule of every Monday at 7 a.m. into a proper Cron expression, 0, 11, 1s in UTC. Claude is now asking us to confirm the right Slack channel and provide our Supabase credentials. And you can see it's already been smart enough to call Vercel 4 times to pull the project environment. So rather than us manually hunting down credentials, the agent is doing that heavy lifting for us. So here we're in the middle of a conversation with Claude inside the cursor terminal, and you can see Claude has hit 2 blockers. It's connected to the wrong Slack workspace, and it can't access our Supabase credentials because the auth.nv.local file is ignored. We're responding by letting Claude know it can pull those Supabase values directly from the auth.nv.local file in the Makers Lounge project, which is one of the 3 options Claude just offered us. This back and forth is actually the magic of the Claude loop pattern. Claude is autonomously identifying what it needs and asking us to unblock it, rather than just failing silently. So here you can see Claude is walking us through 2 blockers it hit, the wrong Slack workspace and the missing Supabase credentials. We're telling it to go ahead and use Vercel env vars for the credentials later, and we're switching the Slack connector now by heading over to claude.ai customize connectors. This is a great pattern. Rather than stopping the whole setup, we're unblocking Claude 1 issue at a time so it can have the full routine ready to deploy the moment we're back. So here we're in a back and forth with our Claude agent inside the cursor terminal, and we're working through 2 real blockers. The wrong Slack workspace is connected, and our Supabase credentials can't be passed via .nv.local since the agent clones from GitHub. We've decided to go with Vercel environment variables for the Supabase credentials, which is the cleanest solution since the agent can pull them at runtime via the Vercel MCP. Right now, we're heading over to claude.ai customize AHA connectors to swap in the correct Slack workspace, and once we're back, Claude will have the full weekly digest routine ready to wire up, querying Supabase every Monday at 7 a.m. and posting a summary straight to the Makers Lounge Slack channel. So here we've confirmed our Slack connection is live. You can see Claude found the Makers Lounge channel automatically by calling the Slack API. Now we're looking at the full routine Claude has set up. It's going to query Supabase every Monday at 7 a.m. Toronto time, pull the last 7 days of signups, projects, and RSVPs, and post a formatted digest straight to your Slack channel. The model powering all of this is Claude Sonnet 4.6, which gives us a solid balance of speed and intelligence for a weekly automation like this. So here you can see Claude has successfully connected to Slack and found the All Makers Lounge house channel on makerslounge.slack.com. Pretty cool that it did that autonomously. It's now asking us for the 2 Supabase environment variables it can't read from Vercel, and it's even laid out the full routine it's about to create in that table. Name, schedule, repo, everything. Once we paste in those next public Supabase URL and next public Supabase anon key values from our auth.env.local file, Claude will go ahead and wire up the entire weekly digest automation for us. Now, we're looking at this article on X from Claude Devs, which is walking us through how to use the char goal command to define success criteria for your Claude agent loops. You can see here that instead of letting Claude decide when it's good enough and stop early, we're setting a deterministic exit condition. In this example, getting a lighthouse score of 90 or above. This is a really powerful pattern because it hands off the evaluation to a separate model, so Claude just keeps iterating until that hard threshold is actually met. Now, we're looking at this article on X about Claude's agentic loop patterns, specifically the au-delà goal command, which lets you define a success condition so Claude keeps iterating until it actually hits that target. You can see the example right here where we're setting a lighthouse score threshold of 90, so Claude won't stop until that criteria is genuinely met. This is super powerful because it removes the guesswork of Claude deciding on its own when something is good enough. You're handing it a deterministic exit condition instead. So right now, we're reading through the Claude Devs article on X, specifically this section about how the query goal command works. And this is really important to understand before we start writing any code. You can see here that when you define a success criteria using Chacho and goal, Claude will keep iterating until that condition is actually met, rather than just stopping whenever it thinks it's done a good enough job. And over on our sticky note, you'll notice we've already jotted down just adding the variables now. So we've absorbed this concept and we're ready to jump into the implementation. So here we can see our Maker's Lounge weekly digest routine live inside Claude's routines feature. Notice it's set to active and scheduled to run every Monday at 7 a.m. EDT, which means this thing is going to fire automatically without us lifting a finger. The instructions panel on the right is where all the magic happens. We've wired it directly to our Supabase database with the anon key, and it knows to query the last 7 days of activity and push a formatted digest straight to our Slack channel. This is a really powerful pattern because you're essentially giving Claude a standing job that runs on a cron schedule backed by real data from your production database. So the schedule loop is now live in Anthropic's cloud. You can see it confirmed the first run will be Monday, July 13th at 7 a.m. Toronto time, and every Monday after that automatically. We did a test trigger right now just to make sure everything's wired up correctly. And you can see that remote trigger came back with an HTTP 200, meaning it fired successfully. Now I'm asking it to skip posting to that public Slack channel because we want to be careful about where this actually lands. So let's see how Claude handles that constraint on the fly. So here you can see Claude has hit a snag. It tried to post to All Makers Lounge, but we flagged that it's a public channel, so it went ahead and checked what other channels are available. Now we're telling it to create a private Slack channel called Sopi ML Digest. And Claude is handling that entirely on its own through its tool calls. No manual Slack setup required on our end. This is the beauty of the agentic loop. It runs, hits a problem, asks for clarification, and adapts, all within a single session. So here we're having a real-time conversation with Claude inside the terminal. And notice how we just flagged that posting to a public Slack channel might not be ideal. And Claude immediately calls the Slack API to check what other channels are available. Now we're telling it to go ahead and create a brand new private channel called Saukuli EL Digest Imki. And you can see Claude is already making that Slack API call in the background, handling all of that for us automatically without us writing a single line of code. So here we can see Claude recognizing that the original channel was public and proactively offering us 3 alternatives. And we just told it to go ahead and create a private channel called Nora ML Digest. Watch what happens next. Claude calls the Slack API, creates a channel, and then immediately fires off a remote trigger to update the existing routine to point to the new channel. All in one shot, no extra prompting needed. This is exactly the kind of multi-step agentic behavior that makes the Claude loop pattern so powerful. So here we're telling Claude to create a private Slack channel called AEML Digest. And you can see it immediately calls the Slack API and confirms the channel is created. Then we update the remote trigger routine. That HTTP 200 response means everything is wired up correctly. And when we say yes to the test run, Claude fires the trigger and tells us to check Kubri ML Digest NDE in about 1 to 2 minutes. This is the power of the agentic loop. Claude isn't just generating text, it's actually taking actions on your